it might be a good idea at this point to add some lighting that casts shadows into the scene. If I unhide the default light, it's actually already pointing down at a specific angle, so I can take advantage of that angle there and enable shadows on the light and lower the umbra to something almost black. And if I draw a render region in the area I'd expect the shadow to be cast, let's see if the effect are affected by the light. And you can actually see just on the edge there, they are visible. If I increase the shadow umbra, this might be a little easier to see. Or it also could have been my eyes. It might have just been me. I thought I see something right here, but until we actually see the final render, we won't truly be able to tell. So let's build this compound for our effect. I'll jump into the ice tree, and I'll also make sure I can add this effect to another ice tree to hook up the other emitter object. So of this tree, remember, we need to take out any objects that aren't literal. In this scene, everything could actually get packaged up because the wind object that I'm using is going to be a part of this scene. So that's actually what I'm going to do, minus the emitter object and minus the directional control for position. I'll be building two more on the other side. So we'll take everything else, we'll insert an execute node at the entrance to our ice tree, so we can gather all of our nodes under one roof, and we'll create a compound from that. Edit the compound. We'll call this our steam compound, and we'll export it into our ice category. And let's export that. So I'll export the compound, export the steam effect, and I'm also going to export the render tree for the steam effect. So let's open up the render tree by pressing 7. I'll also take all of these nodes here, and I'll create a compound for them. Edit the compound, call it my steam shader, and we'll leave it in the shader compounds folder. If I need to access any inputs from it, I'll build those inputs a little bit later. So now that both of our compounds have been exported, I need to go in, I'll build one more point cloud. Just do a quick save here. So I'll call this one the right leg steam point cloud. And I'll build a new ice tree on it. So I'll clear that, create a new simulated ice tree, and from the tools ice folder, I'll pull in the steam effect. Now it already has everything intact except for the null name and direction, so I simply need to pull in the object I'm using here. So there's the left direction for steam, so let's pull that over to the other side by mirroring it. And I'll call this my right side object. And I'll bring that into the graph as my steam effect direction. I need its global position. So I'll provide that. And finally the null name, so the right hydraulic emitter, which should be right there. Again, I'm going to need to bring this up a little higher. If you remember early on, it was just a little embedded. It was embedded too deeply in my character's leg. So I'll bring the emitter object in and provide that as my null name. Now on this point cloud, if I open the Explorer, the right leg steam point cloud, I'm also going to have to add in the shader that I've created. So I'll just do a throwaway shader. I'll rename the material Steam Material 1, and if I look down the render tree into my shader compounds folder, I should find my steam shader. And and I'll plug it into the volume input of the Steam material and delete the surface, shadow, and photon connections. So that should do it. Let's have a look. Just move into a wireframe mode just so I can see everything at first. Cool. Both of these clouds are working exactly the same. So one of the things that you can do just to kind of mix things up a little bit, if anyone were to pick these discrepancies out, is in the Steam effect would be to enter into the emit from null compound and change the random seed value. Any node that has a random seed value will just use the randomize generators in slightly different ways. So you're not pulling the same exact colors between these two effects. So on almost everything we could change this. Not very necessary at this point, but I mean to do as much as I'm doing here, but can't hurt. Alright, so it might not look that much different here, but we are going to get slightly different behaviors. Okay, maybe the last thing we want to do before rendering is in the Explorer, I've actually got the constraints, so the emitter objects are constrained to my character, however the direction constraints aren't. So what I would probably do here is the right and left direction constraints, I'll drop them onto the appropriate emitters as well. Just make them children of it. So I'll take the direction constraint over here and drop it onto the left hydraulic emitter. Alright, so just do one last little play here, make sure everything's working. We get our steam coming off both objects. Looking pretty good. And if I draw a render region, cool, we can verify all that steam now. So the next task would be to go in and actually render this effect. So I'll set up a render pass, and we'll come back when this has rendered off and we'll show you the final flipbook.